Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. We got a lot of stuff coming for you this week. Staying busy as ever. We just got our Spotify Wrapped recap for the podcast. That's the only one that does it. I don't get anything through Apple. Of course, I can track what I do on YouTube, so all those things are fun. But can't wait to share with you, and I've started to share it out on social media. But top 10% of all video podcast, and we're talking 500,000 plus podcasts on Spotify, being in the top 10%. There's a bunch of other stats out there. Cannot thank you guys enough, but we're not here to do that, but we are here today to talk a little mailbag. We haven't had a mailbag in quite a while where we go through some of the questions that you guys have or questions that I see floating around on the internet related to the Carolina Panthers. So now feels like a good opportunity for me to take the time and answer some of these, or at least give you my opinion. So why not? Let's go ahead and look at the first one. On here, it says, looking at the 2026 draft, it feels like we finally have an offense that functions, but our pass rush is non-existent. I swear this person must have listened to me on ESPN Wilmington today. I don't know, but it feels like you were tuned in. If so, but do we spend our first round pick next year in 26 on a premier edge rusher, or do we trade back to fill the holes in the secondary? And I guess, well, maybe you're thinking safety because it feels pretty solidified in the secondary. So which unit is holding us back more right now? So yes, if you didn't hear me today on ESPN Radio, we talked about the Panthers defense and a lot of the successes that they've had in the secondary coming alive with some turnovers down the stretch. I do think for the Carolina Panthers, edge rusher is a big priority. Now, knock on wood, hopefully you are picking back at pick 18, 19, 20, whatever it is, towards the tail end of this, because that means you're in the playoffs and having some success and going on a run, or at least we hope. Either way, Panthers probably in the middle to the back half of the draft this year. I don't know that it makes sense to trade back. They have a really good draft or good draft capital that they're taking into this. So I'm all for going after an edge, but I'm also going after and paying one. A lot of the conversations that we are having, and this is a thing I brought up, the benefit of giving Bryce Young that 5th-year option is you don't have to pay him 45, 50, whatever it is, or even the franchise tag. You're saving yourself at least 15 million. That's a good opportunity for you to go out and get in some key defensive players and get in we got to have a pass rusher. We have got to have a top end talent pass rusher. It's not to knock on anything that we have between what Pat Jones could be coming off the injury, DJ Wonham, of course, Scorton, who we hope continues to grow, and Uman Mielen. You're just going to need someone out of the gate that is that top end talent. So maybe not even trading back, could be trading up potentially, depending on where the Panthers fall. But guess what? That is one of the things right now that we just don't have to worry about as Panthers fans, because we're focused on the bye week. We're also focused on being able to hopefully play some good football here down the stretch and get into the playoffs. Good question, though. Next question says, we're almost through the season. How would you grade the 2025 rookie class? I feel like our team itself has done really well, that we've hit on some late picks. Is this a success for Dan Morgan? Sorry, the question was kind of worded a little bit weirdly as I was reading it. I should have cleaned it up before this. I do think, outside of Cam Jackson, this entire rookie class, big success. When you're able to hit on a first round pick the way that you are with Tetairoa McMillan, who should, again, knock on wood, should be able to break the Panthers rookie receiving mark held by Kelvin Benjamin. He's on pace to do that. He's on pace to lead all pass catchers, wide receivers, tight ends, and receiving yards. The production that we've had down the stretch, man, it is exciting to see what he is. And then, like we said, we talked about Scorton, we talked about Uman Mielen, we mentioned Lathan Ransom, ETN. You have a lot of production. Jimmy Horn Jr., who's kind of faded a little bit, but still there. There's a lot of talent, and it's a lot of guys who are seeing the field, which is important. This year for the Panthers was youth. It was the youth movement. That's why you trade away Adam Thielen. That's why you get rid of Jadeveon Clowney. Panthers made a decision to get younger. And that's exactly what happened. And now they're starting to see the fruits of the labor from that. And that'll really translate into next year when you have a lot of these guys again being able to see the field early and often. So, I mean, if we're grading the whole class, I'm giving it honestly an A to an A plus, and hopefully I'm not being a homer on that. Let me know what you guys think. I have a little bit of an identity crisis here from Sammy QC. Sammy says, I watch teams like the Lions or the Ravens, and I know exactly who they are. They're tough. They're able to run the ball. So after 2 years of this new regime, what is a Carolina Panther, they put that in quotation, supposed to be? I still can't define our identity. Can you? Wow, good question. I think we're all still trying to figure out exactly what are the Carolina Panthers. Who is this team building the consistency? And it's a consistency with Bryce. It's a consistency with Canales, consistency with the defense. There's all facets. Almost every player on this team outside of a JC Horn or Derek Brown is trying to find consistency to be able to play at the top end, top level that we know that they can. So finding that is who we're trying to get to. Now, you talk about our identity. I think our identity is slowly but surely right in front of us as a run first team that will run it down your throat 30 times a game, 35 if we need to, have an efficient passing offense around it with Bryce Young, keep the ball, and then have a defense that's opportunistic. Hey, you know what? We know how Evero likes to play off. He likes to give guys, other teams space, but we're going to rally to the ball, we're going to tackle, and we're going to bend but not break once we get into the red zone and down near the goal line. That's what the goal of this defense is. So speaking of an identity, I think it's close to what we've thought about of some of the Panthers teams in the past. I don't think this is going to be an explosive throw the ball 40, 50 times a game type of offense that's just going to light it up, be one of the greatest shows on grass or turf, anything like that. But it is going to be a competitive football team. And I think if Bryce Young can continue to move forward, we got a really, really solid team. And I like the direction they're headed. Great question there, but I think we're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. All right. Carolina Blue says, or Carolina Blue Forever. I'm looking at the standings and I see 7-6 next to our name, but I don't believe it. Well, you can believe it. We were able to overtake the Rams and the Falcons. But we have some important games, of course, coming up with the Saints and the Bucks. Be real with me. Are we actually a playoff team, or are we just the best of the worst in a terrible NFC South? I'm terrified of getting my hopes up only to finish 8-9. Man, that's a loaded question. Really good insight. I don't think that we are the best of the worst. I do think we are on the verge of making a little bit of a push. And like Tampa may have slidden down just a little bit, but Tampa Bay is still a good team. And they're going to get back Mike Evans. At least that's what it sounds like. And I'm all for it. I said, give them Mike Evans. I don't want any excuses as to if the Panthers beat them and win the NFC South. Don't let them say, well, we didn't have Mike Evans. We didn't have Chris Godwin, Emeka Ibuka. We didn't have these guys. We didn't have Bucky Irving. Okay, I want you to have everyone. I want you to be fully healthy so there is no crutch that you can lean on. Best thing about the Panthers situation right now is that they have the chance to sit back, get healthy, and rest, something they haven't been able to do. And I think that alone, with only 4 games to go, Dave Canales was asked about the team potentially trying to empty the tank last week. And he said that's not his philosophy. He wants them to empty it every week. But I do think they did. I think they emptied it a little bit more, and now they get that full reset, the time off that's well needed, and they're going to recharge. And I would say, let's take this game by game, as Canales would want to do. And I say that because this has been a successful season. I would hate to get to 8-9. I was thinking about that before I recorded, only winning one more game. If it is the Saints and losing the last 3 is not the way you want to finish. But at that 8-9, 9-8 mark, and if maybe they just don't have the math to get into the playoffs, I still look at this as a very big success for the Carolina Panthers, kind of tying into that identity question from the other person there, it ties together that we are building and finding the identity right now with the Carolina Panthers. So it's something to be excited about. So I'd say latch on, have a little fun. This is fun. It's a game. Nothing to be stressed about, nothing to worry about. Have some little fun. Hopefully you're not putting too much money on the games and you can enjoy it. So there you have it. All right, we got the tale of two receivers over here from Mac Attack 5. Can we talk about the wide receiver room? He says, Tetairoa McMillan looks like an absolute superstar. Thank you, draft gods. But what is happening with Xavier Legette? In year 2, he seems to have disappeared while Jalen Coker is getting more targets, more progression. Is XL a bust, or is Bryce just locking into his new favorite target in Tetairoa McMillan? Good question. I personally, you guys know my ties to South Carolina Gamecocks. I'm a big fan of XL, wanted XL, but I will acknowledge from afar that when you do compare the two, and maybe it's just not fair, but it's, yeah, T-Mac is everything you want in a number one wide receiver and a wide receiver that's drafted in the first round. Even if XL was drafted at the very end, still counts as the first rounder, so you do want to see something out of him. XL's had his moments, and I think there's a little bit of mental that was happening with him. He got time to rest. Speaking of rest, he got to rest a little bit, and now we're starting to see a better version of him. It's not going to be a showstopper with stats, and I don't know that it ever will be within his career, but you are seeing the dynamic between this young trio with Coker, XL, and T-Mac, and then you start to throw in some really good tight end play with Mitchell Evans, get Jimmy Horn Jr. involved. We're talking about a team that's kind of figuring out, again, driving back to the theme of the youth movement. So no, I don't think we're going to chart up XL as a bust, and let's just tone that one down a little bit. So, question here related to the running back room and what would I do, or what is the outlook for the running back room for 2026? So there's a lot in play. Chuba Hubbard is under contract. You just drafted ETN. Rico Dowdle's a free agent, but he's looked really good. He's had a lot of success. And then you're going to have Jonathan Brooks working his way back. So 4 backs in the lineup. From what we've seen, this is a 3-back rotation. So I would anticipate, and this is just like where we are today, that Chuba Hubbard stays under contract. ETN's going to be an option. And then you have Jonathan Brooks, Jonathan Brooks will be back, but hopefully he's a version of what we anticipated. And Jonathan Brooks replaces Rico Dowdle. You have Chuba Hubbard who can lead. And I think when healthy, from what we've seen this past week, that he can still do that. And then you start to mix in Jonathan Brooks, who you hope stays healthy, and ETN. Between that rotation, I think that is your 3. I would love, just as me personally, to bring in Rico, but I think logistically, it probably not going to be able to pay him. You got some other needs. Still got to work out some stuff on the offensive line for long-term decisions there. Trying to figure out, are we locking in Cade Mays, Austin Corbett? Congrats to Austin Corbett for being nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award for the Panthers. But yeah, that's what I see for the running back room. Some shockers that could happen. Like, do they actually get rid of Chuba? And I think it's a little too early for that. Do they find a way to bring back Rico? But to me, it feels like it's going to be 3. It's just in the 3 that it likely is are the guys that are under contract for this year. So I think Rico's the odd man out. But given what you've seen and how good he's been, if you can keep him here and if he's satisfied and sees the vision, go for it. But again, it's going to be a short career, and this is probably his last time to get, you're talking about a 2 or 3 year contract to get his 10, 15, 20, 30 million. And I'm all for that for the sake of him. So anyways, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode. This is Carolina Dad.